What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Contractor Secrets Podcast. And in today's episode, I want to talk to you about employee retention. This is a thing that I'm really passionate about because I truly believe the only way to grow is to grow from within, to have a good, solid group of really guys that or girls that, have a commitment to the vision, a commitment to you as the business owner. And I think that in our industry, really, you have a unique opportunity to stand out, and I kind of want to dive a little bit into that as I get into this episode. But really, what it comes down to is the fact that majority of people have left their jobs out of spite. They left them because the boss didn't treat them well. Maybe they were overworked, they were underpaid. Maybe the boss didn't understand how to really get the best out of their employees. And there's some principles that I like to make sure that I'm in line with, just to make sure that I never even get to that point where wanting to leave my company is a thought. Now, that don't mean to make that sound bad, but really I only want the only reason for my employees to leave my company is if there's a better opportunity for them or if they want to start their own business. Really, those are the only two things. So, other than that, if there's anything that I can control, I want to make sure that I'm there for them. And I also want to make sure that I'm being cognizant, in other words, being aware of really just the morale, making sure that they're happy, and a happy employee creates a happy customer. Really simple formula. So my focus as a business owner is if I can make my employees happy, then ultimately my customers will be happy. And it's a lot easier to make your employees happy when you're working with them one-on-one rather than all the customers that you serve. Let them do that. They'll do a great job at that. So let's talk about it. First, we have to understand employees. Why did they come to work for you? Well, they come to work for you for a couple reasons, but I'll name three that are really important. Number one, stability. They come to work for you for stability. They want to make sure that there's going to be work. They want to make sure that there's going to be somewhere to go the next day. Okay. So the first responsibility that you have as a business owner is to make sure that there is work. You have got to make sure that that schedule is full. Now, there's some business owners out there that really don't understand the concept of sacrifice when it comes to ensuring that your team is good. And when I say that, I mean that, let me give you an example. When I first started my business, we didn't have the schedule that we do now. Obviously, we weren't filling a whole week worth of work. We were only filling maybe 3 days worth of work, sometimes 4 days. And what I realized is if I was on the job actually doing the painting and helping, actually what would happen is that we would get the jobs done too quick. Now, most business owners get excited about that because that means that there's less money that they have to pay out to the employee over the course of a week. But me understanding what it's going to take to keep my great employees with me, I understand that's actually a bad thing because they're not going to have a day of work on Friday. And ultimately, I'm the guy that makes the profit. I paid them for 4 days and I get to enjoy my 3-day weekend. Well, obviously, when we're paying wages, we want to make sure that these guys are making good money. And so, what I did was when I knew that it was a short week, I would actually remove myself from the production that week, let the team of two or team of three that I had at the time do the production and let them do it for the entire week, stretch out the jobs. Actually, I would do that. And what that did was it just ensured that they knew that they were getting their 40 hours. And that's something that's really, really important. So understanding that, great employees want stability and doing whatever you can to ensure that they're getting that every single week is super important. Okay. So stability is number one. Number two, they want security. Okay. And when I say security, I think it's more so emotional security when it comes to who's in charge of putting food on their table. And it really has to do with you as a business owner, understanding that when it comes to security, it comes down to what is your temperament like? How quick are you to maybe even threaten a job if they make a mistake? How quick are you to forgive? How quick are you to really identify that, no one's perfect and no one will care about your business more than you do. So there is going to be some errors that occur. Really, the idea as a business owner is to identify whether those errors are blatant or those errors are really just errors that happen, normal errors, and how you respond to those errors. Are you a coaching type of business owner, or are you a business owner that has no tolerance? And I think when people feel as though that their job is in jeopardy, that's when they start to want to go somewhere else. That's when they start to check out, and really stop being creative, because human creativity is what creates great experiences, in my personal opinion. So if you're creating an environment that is heavily based on fear, in other words, you don't have much compassion, you don't have much empathy, for whatever reason. If they have a doctor's appointment and you have a deadline to hit on a job, and that that doctor's appointment is something they have to take care of for their kid, or something they have to do for their, family, and you don't have the empathy to just say, hey, you know what, do what you got to do, we'll figure it out. Well, ultimately, you're creating a environment of fear, because they can't control some things. And if you're not the type of business owner that allows room for that, then ultimately you're creating a fear mindset. The security that they feel in knowing that you're there for them, and the security that they feel knowing that they don't have to be in a position where they're going to have to frantically look for a job because you fired them over this. um, you just have to understand that dynamic. And I grew up around this. I had friends or family members that had bosses that had really no tolerance. And you just hear how they talk about their boss, you just hear how it frustrates the family. You hear how there's fear that gets put into the household because the boss has a temperament that just doesn't exude any empathy, it doesn't exude any understanding, it doesn't exude any real leadership. And I remember seeing it, and I also remember seeing it in my own household. My father would have a boss that had a temperament, or whatever, and it just put us on edge, me as a kid and my sister. And I just always put it in the back of my head that I never want to do that to anyone. I want people to go home in a good mood. I want them to go home and feel as though, like, they can talk about how great their day was, and they could talk about how, awesome their boss is for letting them, take the day off. Or, hey, I had someone ask me yesterday, hey, my birthday's coming up Thursday. My mom's coming into town, and I haven't seen her in a while. And listen, right now, my personal business, Premium Painting, it is slammed. I have my project manager's out. He had surgery. Like, we are in no position to let anyone take off. And it was no question for me, just go ahead, we'll figure it out, man. And you just tell you're just so thankful. And that's what keeps people coming back. That's what keeps them wanting to work even harder. So I know for a fact, like, he's going to work extra hard this week because he knows I had his back. And I just remember what it was like when I was an employee. I had things that I wanted to do, and I wouldn't over ask. I wouldn't, you know, overextend my welcome when it came to just asking for a day off or needing to take care of a family issue. And I didn't get that respect. I didn't get the ability to, and it made me resent the place that I worked. I actually, like, that day would go and look at other job opportunities because I felt trapped. So security, in a sense of temperament of the business owner, security of knowing that their job is secure, security of knowing that, they can have life happen to them and they're not going to lose their job. That's important. Um, and then a little bit of freedom, comes with that security as well. There's a little bit of leniency. It's give and take. There's some people that do take advantage of that. Don't get me wrong. You have to be, you have to have a really good, I would say, you have to be very, you have to use discernment. That's the word. You got to use discernment of understanding who's taking advantage of your kindness and who actually appreciates it and takes the gift of whatever you're giving them and puts it into the business, puts it into the end result. So that's really important. So when it comes to workload, this is another topic that is really important when it comes to keeping high quality employees, is really just keeping that temperature gauge, understanding what workload you're putting on people. Here in Florida, we work in the hot sun a lot, and one thing that I'm constantly doing, aside from trying to sell jobs and get great opportunity, is I'm trying to gauge how tired my team is. And I'm trying to make sure that I'm not stacking too many big jobs, one after the other, one after the other, one after the other. I'm trying to make sure that I'm putting in interior jobs for a crew that had a really long week on a really big house. Like, I'm really doing my best to make sure that they're not exhausted from the workload that they're being given. Me as a business owner, not only do I do it in the regards of what types of jobs that they're taking, but I do it in types of what type of team I'm putting around them. I hear a lot of guys say, what, I just like having two guys on the job. And if you operate like that, like that's great and it's cheap. And you're very blessed to have, two guys that can probably bang out a house or bang out a job or whatever it is that you do. That's really great. But ask them how they're feeling at the end of the week. Hey man, do you feel like are you tired? And just look in their face, because I guarantee they're exhausted trying to paint house after house. And some of you guys keep one guy busy and he's working every single week. And I just want to know, like, if that were you, um, how would you feel? It's like, you as a business owner, you've got to make sure that you're creating support around your all stars. You got to create support. That's why I always have teams of 4 and 5. Does it cost me more money to have 4 and 5 on a team? Absolutely. If I really pushed 3 guys, could they do what a team of 4 does? Absolutely. Do I feel like that having 4 or 5 guys gives my leaders on the team the ability to take their foot off the gas as much as they would if there were 2 or 3 guys? Absolutely. Do I care? No. I want people to feel, number one, that I care enough to make sure that they have support around them. That's number one. Number two, I care about my future customer. The goal of a business is to make sure that every single customer gets the same experience as the last customer. If it's a great experience, obviously, if it was a poor experience, you just always want to make sure everyone gets a great experience. And when we're working with employees, when we're working with team members, okay, we want to make sure that we identify, number one, these guys are human beings that could easily get hurt, they can get tired, and the quality of our product is dependent on how they're feeling that day. Okay. And when that is a variable, in other words, this isn't like a robot that produces the same result every single time. These are humans. And when that's a variable, we have to understand that they get tired, right? And if there's a temperature gauge on Monday, they're at 100% if we're lucky. Then by Friday, maybe they're at 10%. The tank's empty if you're having 1 or 2, workers on a job. And then what happens Monday? Well, maybe that Monday they're at 60%. Maybe they had a long weekend. Maybe they had to go move or help a friend, or maybe they're at 60% on Monday. Okay. And then what happens on Friday of that week? Well, now they're at like 2%. And then maybe they have another long weekend. Instead of starting at 60%, they're at 40%. And there's actually a decline that occurs over and over and over again. And they start to regret their job because they start thinking, man, I have another house to paint Monday. I got to do all that work I did last Monday. Right. And it's your fault, because if you stack them with a team of 4, maybe they're at 60% on that Monday. But guess what? You have 3 other people that can balance the load, and they might say, you know what, why don't you guys take the hard prepping today? I'm going to kind of sit back a little bit. I'll do some of the light prepping today. I'm just, had a rough weekend, and their team will have their back, and it's like, me as a business owner, I don't care. Like, if they take like a light day like that, to me doesn't matter. When I look at great employees, I think long term. I'm just glad that they're on my team. I'm glad that they're there. I'm glad that they're sober. I'm glad that they're, really just invested in my company. So like, anything that I can do to make their life easier, I do. um that's the second part of this. So the first part is really understanding things from an employee perspective, and then aligning your business to make sure that you're avoiding whatever it would be that would cause your employee to want to leave, other than 2 things: starting a business and getting a better opportunity. Okay, so those are the 2 reasons why I would be happy if someone moved on from my company. That's great. But while they're with me, I want to make sure that they stay as long as possible. Number 2, creating an environment that doesn't exhaust them, especially because we're in the trades. We can't, like, we got to understand that people can get tired. So you as a business owner, stop being greedy. Okay. Stop thinking so much about how much money you're making, and start investing in the process to make sure that you have a consistent result every single time. That's number 2. Last part of this, number 3. Okay. I'm going to wrap this up. last part, the questions that you ask your team, okay, individually, getting to know them personally. Okay. This is something you can't skip over. If you think you can just skip over this one, you're going to be hard pressed. You're not going to have any respect on your team. People won't think that you care. Again, you got to remember, when you signed up to be a business owner, you decided to take on, the livelihood of other people. And that's pretty serious to me. You also decided to take on the things they're going through. And if you were in a position to help them, I think that's your responsibility, because what do they do every day? They put their sweat, their time that they'll never get back again. They take their time that they could be doing something else for another business or maybe themselves, and they're building your dream, your business. And that to me is just so valuable, man. So, I think it's important to get to know your team members. And whenever I go to a job, you know, I pull everyone aside individually, and they know I do this. They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, I'll be like, "Hey Tim, man, come on, man, let's chat for a minute." And then me and Tim will chat, and I'll be like, "All right, Wayne, let me grab you for a second," and I literally go around to every one of my employees, and I talk to them individually, and I ask a couple questions. Nothing crazy. I'm not going to sit there and have a cup of tea, but I'm asking, so, hey man, how are you doing? And that's nothing business related. Like, I don't care. When I just ask that, I just want them to tell me, what's going on. And then, I have a guy that his mom's on hospice care right now. And, I know he told me that, and we'll just talk about that, man. And I'll try to relate to him a little bit, you know, because I think naturally it's like this thing, man, where it's like employee versus boss. And I try to avoid that as much as possible, because I really see us all as one team. I just have a role in a company. And yeah, that's how I see it. So I just, try to be as personal as possible. I'll say, just how you doing, man? And I'll hear what's going on, and we'll chat. And then I'll say, well, how do you like working here? Like, is there anything that you think we should be doing differently? And I'll open up the doors to these, so I can try to align the business to make them happier, make their environment better. That's my job, man. I get passionate about this because everyone says that the big problem in this industry is finding good people. And like, yeah, the problem, you're right. Problem is finding good people if you don't have a good environment for good people to hang out in. Like, you know, I'm not going to the club, right? So you won't find me in a club. But where will you find me? At a good, healthy event for entrepreneurship, right? Like, that's a good environment for me to hang out in. So if somebody's in the club wondering why they can't find someone like me, a podcast host, well, they should be like, maybe you should check a place where that person can grow. So for me, it's like, in the same breath, when it comes to you as a business owner, you've got to create an environment of growth. Okay, so let's talk about that last step. Actually, I want to get to that. So having those one-on-one conversations, building a really personal relationship, and doing what you can to align, and I'll kind of say, there's been times when people said, hey man, I'm really struggling at home, man. My car's broke down and this, that, and the other. And, that when I pulled them aside, and I'm glad they told me that, because maybe I can help, and take off the stress so they can focus on their work. And then after I do that, they're so much more committed because I helped them, and it's like this full circle thing, man. And then, really just, there's just so much to it. There's so much to it. And I don't want to go too much deeper into this, because, the environment, the benefits, like all that comes in time. But really, just like having a good, solid team is something that, it's just, there's nothing better to have, is a solid team. And anything you can do to make their life happier, to make their job happier, to make the customer have even greater experience, like, that's your job. Like, you should be a people, like, business owner, like they call it I think they call it a CPO now, a chief people officer. So everyone's like, oh, I'm the CEO, and like, no, I'm the CPO. I'm a chief people officer. I make sure people are happy. And I found that more often than not, people appreciate that, and they'll transition that to my customer. So that's what I got for you guys. Thank you so much for listening to the Contractor Secrets Podcast. If you haven't done so already, I'd love for you to check out Dripjobs. Dripjobs is an automation software. It's a CRM. It'll help you send quotes and estimates to your customers. It'll help you take payments. It's an all-in-one system. I love it, and so I believe everyone else who's signed up absolutely loves it. So hopefully we'll have you next, and I'll walk you through the software. It'll be cool. Thank you so much, guys. We'll catch you on the next one.